I'm requesting Dr. Rucha Raj Thakur. I think she is in the list of our participants. Is she there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm Ruchi Raj Thakur.
Yeah, ma'am. Good evening. Welcome. Before you can take your position for the presentation, I'm just catching your some insights regarding your academic field. Dr. Ruchi Raj Thakur is Assistant Professor in Department of English, Himachal Pradesh National Law University. She is having 11 years of teaching experience. Of course, she has published various research papers in national and international journals. Apart from this, she has attended various national and international conferences. And I think she has also worked as counselor in IGNOU for MEG programs. Madam, all our fellows are waiting anxiously for your presentation, which you have titled as The Secret of Forming a Good Hypothesis for Research. Am I right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatt.
You are here.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
delighted to know that everybody's was eagerly waiting for, that I could contribute to the discussion. And I would like to tell you that I was also, waiting anxiously to be here, to be on the platform. So thank you so much for offering me this platform.
Welcome.
And before I start with my presentation, I think I need to share it. So
Yeah,
just give me a minute. Give me.
at all. You can take your time, please.
Uh, so, so learners, as you know, which is quite visible on the screen, the first slide, sorry, the secret of formulating a good hypothesis for research. I'm going to talk about that. Research is something which is so much in discussion, so much. We talk about research because we are a part of that system where we are contributing and we are seeking help from others contribution to the research circle, to the literary circle, to the intellectual circle. So I would like to talk about hypothesis today, how important it is. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, learners, we're going to talk about the following. These are the objectives of my today's presentation. I'm going to define and describe hypothesis. I would talk about the characteristics. I'll talk about, I'm going to delve deep into the formulation of hypothesis, functions, and the possible difficulties one may encounter while formulating hypothesis. And explaining the different types of hypothesis. And I'll also be talking about the critical side to this. Can we move further? Yeah. Hypothesis is a tentative assumption. So I could somehow lay hands on this beautiful quotation, stepping stone. So this has talked about hypothesis quite, candidly. Hypothesis is a stepping stone to a soon to be proven theory. So we are going to deal with a situation where we have assumed, the outcome, and we have to set out on our journey to prove it. So let's move further. Can we move to the next slide from where I'll start explaining? Yeah. So with this, we have actually come to the very important part of research. What is research? We all know that. But how a research starts? A research starts when you have some, point to prove. When you have a research question in your mind, when you have a research problem in your mind, where you want to, solve something, where you are trying to sort, or where you're trying to, find the gap between what you are thinking, and what you see. So it is your research is actually based on a good research problem. Now, what is a research problem? A research problem is a troubling question. It troubles us because we yearn to find a solution to it. We need to deliberate. We need to expound the problem. We need to delve deep. We need to find out everything that is buried under the carpet, and we need to bring it out. So it is a problem. That is why it has been named as a problem, and this problem has a question. Now, uh, it takes now a research. When you think of a research, obviously you think of what are you going to elaborate, what are you going to delve, what are you going to expand, what are you going to explore, what are you going to investigate. So this what means you are looking for an answer to a question. So now, uh, here this research problem or this question can be answered if you have few concepts in your mind which are known as variables. Variables means the phenomena. The variables are phenomena a researcher need to measure in some way or the other. Now, when we look at these variables, we try to find out that are they related. I'll cite an example, but let me just discuss them one by one. Uh, I'll discuss what is a research problem. Suppose the research problem, according to you, the research problem is for how many hours per student, or how many hours a student would spend on phone, for how long each student is on phone. For example, this is your problem and you're trying to find an answer to it. You're trying to investigate that. I mean, for how many, for what is the span which the students are spending on internet or maybe phone. And uh, so the variables are students and the phone. So you're trying to find out the problem and answer to that problem. So and then you try to find out, are they both related? Is variable A related to B? Is If students are spending their time on phone, what is the outcome of it? What is the result of that? So are they related or are they not? If they are failing, so is it because of the time they are spending on the phone or what? So how are A and B related to C? Means the result. Is A related to B under conditions X and Y? So means you try to find out the conditions, that what could be the circumstances which actually affect A and B, the variables A and B. So proposing a statement pertaining to a relationship, to this relationship between A and B, is called hypothesis. So to reach to hypothesis, it is important that you discover a problem, because you need to have something in your mind. Otherwise, for no reason, we don't conduct a research. So we have something in our mind. That means you have created a problem in your mind, means a question. What is that question? Are you trying to find the relationship between two things? Are you trying to find out if concept A is related to B? Suppose you say that those students who are spending more time on phone, they are flunking, they are failing. So means you are trying, you have brought, you have tried to establish relationship between variable A and B. So when you, and suppose you come up with this, those students who are spending more time on phone, they are failing. So that is a statement which is which is based on your hypothetical view. Maybe that could be the possibility. Maybe because of that, students are failing. So that is hypothesis. Hypothesis is what? Just a guess or a tentative generalization regarding relationship between two or more variables, where you try to find out the gap. And now, coming to one more thing before I move to the next slide, I also want to discuss this that before you delve deep into your research, researcher is very confused that what would be the outcome of this investigation. The that long process of reaching to the conclusion, I mean, how that conclusion will emerge, how will he reach to that point? So now, you need to understand that research problem and hypothesis, because in the further slides I'm going to talk about hypothesis. So you need to understand there's a wide difference between research problem and research and hypothesis. As I've already discussed, that it is a tentative. Tentative means it could be, I mean, the result could be as per your expectation, or it may it may not concede to your thinking, your what you have perceived in your mind, concede to your notion. So there's a difference between a research problem, means a question, and hypothesis. Hypothesis makes prediction. Make prediction. It predicts that this could be the result. And so it is, because you are investigating, that means you are experimenting. The result is based on observation and a number of experiments. Whereas research question is not based on I mean, it does not talk about outcome. It is a question, and the hypothesis gives a tentative answer to the research problem. So I hope I could make myself clear regarding these two. Now, can we move to the next slide? Yeah. Now, there's another thing I want to discuss before I elaborate hypothesis. Uh, in research, we have theories, we have propositions. Proposition is a declarative statement. It is, I mean, hypothesis. Hypothesis is a part of, or you can say, proposition includes hypothesis, because hypothesis is also a declarative statement. Here, if you see, I've incorporated an example here. Declarative statement means you are giving a statement. That's a sentence that you are stating. That's an assertive sentence you are an assertive comment you are making. Now here I've written, an increase in student intelligence causes an increase in their academic achievement. So this is my hypothetical view, that an increase in the student intelligence results in an increase in the academic achievement. So this is a statement. Now, when I'm saying declarative statement, I'm declaring it, but it does not mean that it cannot be tested. It needs no veracity. Its veracity need not be checked. It needs to be verified. It has to be testable. Whether this statement that I've made is correct or not. Am I looking at something with a fixed mind? Is my notion biased? So you need to test it. You need to put it to test whether it is fitting well in all the cases. So that has to be kept in mind. So a proposition is relationship between the constructs, means the variables, and it is in a declarative form. But remember, it has to be empirically tested. Your data is not fixed. It has to be, it cannot include hypothesis if it is fixed. So that has to be kept in mind. Now moving to the second part of this slide, theory. There are a number of theories which are, we have a very clear, we are very clear when it comes to the theory, that it is a well established fact. It is based on a well established principle. Well established means which has been put to test time and again, which has developed after a lot of deliberation, after a lot of testing, after a lot of experimentation. It does not come to us, without any logic, without any verification. It is tested again and again. It is put to test, again, so that the researcher is sure whether the theory he is incorporating is fitting well in this circumstance, or if it is true to the study. So you need to find it. That is why, we keep testing them. It is not that a theory once made cannot be put to test again. It can be put to test if researchers, if they disapprove of something. So it has to be, they have the right to negate it, because, for example, in literature, if we talk about, suppose we are talking about a particular novel, and you can deny the usage of a particular theory. Maybe new historicism does not fit. Maybe you want to incorporate feminism. Maybe you want to incorporate new criticism. So I mean, that needs to be tested whether it is fitting well or not. So theories arise from repeated observations and testing. There's a simple example. I would like to cite an example here. The theory of, according to aggression frustration theory, aggression is a response to the frustration. The explanation is that aggression is a learned social, behavior, and that it is provoked when the individual feels frustrated. He learns that for aggression, one often has to pay. So this is a theory. This learning is not only by one's own. This, you cannot come to such conclusions because you think of them that way. So it has to be put to experience. It has to be put to experiment. It needs to be tested. It cannot merely be based on what you feel. You cannot give way to your judgments. They need to be verified time and again, and only then they are accepted. They are widely accepted. Otherwise, they are negated. Always remember, these theories, propositions, hypotheses, they work in a sector where you conduct in a sector which promotes empirical research. Now, moving to the all right, let me just talk a little more about this. Suppose we talk about theory of differential association related to the cause of crime. This is the theory. Theory is called theory of differential associations, and it is related to the cause of crime. And our proposition is, crime is a behavior learned in a process of communication with people in primary groups who define the legal rules unfavorably. What would be our question? See, every theory, every proposition, every hypothesis answer a question. Here the question could be, is crime learned through interaction? Is interaction with criminals more important in learning crime? So you need to understand that all these are together, but they are distinct in their own way. Your preposition, the concepts enable the building, enable the building of propositions, and propositions enable the building of theory. That needs to be kept in mind. Can we move further? All right. So let's talk about hypothesis here. Now I've come to the important point, on which my whole presentation, I've established the whole presentation. As I've already discussed, hypothesis is a predictive statement capable of being tested by scientific methods that relates an independent variable to some dependent variable. For example, I'm citing the same example, or let me change another. My hypothesis is working woman enjoys a better status than non-working women. So this is my hypothesis. So, and my question is, uh, are working women enjoying, better status than non-working women? So, hypothesis, you can, whatever you whatever it is based on your belief that yes, I think, you become predictive when you say that yes, working women certainly enjoy a better lifestyle. Their life pattern is better than non-working. So, no, but this is tentative because you have thought about it, and it is governed by a number of conditions, like your social condition, your moral condition. What you see means your observation, your experiences. So on the basis of this, you formulated a proposition. But is it fixed? No, you can question it. It is tentative, it is testable. So hypothesis is often considered a tentative and testable statement of the possible relationship between two or more events, variables under investigation. Now, moving to let me talk about. So, you know, it is an assumption about relations between variables, which means that it tests the established relationship, or the stated relationship. That is, it contains the variables that are measurable, with which, if the variables cannot be tested, if they cannot be measured, then in that case, measured means you they are fixed. You cannot weigh what is the you cannot get you cannot come out with a logic. In that case, your hypothesis is not a true hypothesis because it is not testable, so you cannot fix it. And to I mean it is a tentative, as I've already discussed. It is a tentative explanation of the research problem or a guess about the research outcome. Another thing that you need to keep in mind before, when a researcher steps into the arena of research, he is very confused. He has a number of there are a number of ideas, there are a number of questions, and he tries to find answers to them. So it may take a long time for the researcher to say what questions he had been seeking answers to. And when he is very clear about that, hypothesis can be formulated. But a good hypothesis depends upon a good research problem. What are you intending to find? Because what are you trying to investigate? Your statement will support that question, because your hypothesis is a tentative response to the problem. You have to verify it. It can be agreed upon, it can be disagreed upon, but that would happen at the later stage. But first, you need to think of a hypothesis, what you have in your mind. Now, I want to cite an example here. There could be a number of you may have different notions to different situations. For example, many a times you must have heard people saying young girls are more victims of crimes against are victims of crime, or crime against women is crime against young girls is increasing. It is more, or let me rephrase it. Young girls face brutal crimes or heinous crimes than middle-aged women. Means middle-aged women are less harmed in the name of crime. Criminals do not harm them more than young girls. How do we know that? How are we sure about that? Only if we'll put that situation to test. Or sometimes we say, borders use, or borders fag more than non-borders. So how can we say that? Or in certain part of India, rape is rapidly increasing due to this reason. So why? I mean, stating something is all right, but verification of the fact is very, very important. That is why, because we are not certain whether because we don't know what we are stating is correct. It could be correct, it may not be, it can be falsified as you progress with your research. Now, in another, to sum this slide, I would like to say that hypothesis translates the research question into a prediction of expected outcome. So a problem and a predicted outcome is your hypothesis. Can we move further? All right, there are some definitions that I've tried to capture, and these are a few. I'm not going to read them, but they all three of them are completely, they are stating the same, that it is hypothesis is a relationship between two or more variables, and it can be verified, it can be rejected, but of course, it has to be put to test. Test means you have to prove whether you are right, whether the hypothesis is wrong, or you are confirming it. Can we move further? All right. Now, main functions of hypothesis. Why do we, think of a hypothetical, hypothetical outcome? We do it to test theories. There are a number of theories in the in the research circle. So you have to put each theory to test whether it suits your point, whether it justifies your point, or sometimes you wish to suggest a particular theory regarding something. For example, why crime is increasing? So there is a particular theory. Why people who do not talk much act, they are a little weird? So there has to be a theory. And these theories, as I've already discussed, they are based on experiments. They are tested from time to time. And after being tested a number of times, they are framed, they become established theories. Sometimes to describe social phenomena, sometimes to help formulating a particular policy, to indicate need for change in systems, by providing new knowledge to assist in refuting certain common notions. So all in all, the main, according to me, hypothesis act as a guide. A guide. It acts as a guide to research by offering directions to the structure and operation. It offers a temporary, temporary answer to the research question. So these are the, I think hypothesis does, aims to fulfill all these criterias. Can we move further? Now, what needs to be remembered? What should be in your mind when you are thinking of formulating hypothesis? See, you need to be very clear that when hypothesis is formulated, the investigator must determine usefulness of the formulated hypothesis. Means, what is the future scope? What are you going to contribute? What will be the outcome? Will it be beneficial for the society? What will society gain out of it? What are you trying to prove? Are you trying to give a new policy to the world or a new theory to the research world? What? So that needs to be taken care of. And that is why we research, so as to give a new, perspective, a new outlook to something that has already been dealt. Or maybe you talk about new things, but you move from known to the unknown. So that needs to be kept in mind. So what is the usefulness, advantage? What is the benefit? So a good hypothesis is one which meets such criteria to a large extent. But you need to remember, you need to be clear about a few things. Hypothesis should be conceptually clear, means when you are stating something, whether it is, I mean, of course, it is a guess, it is a tentative statement, but you cannot afford to be ambiguous. You cannot, you need to play with words effectively. You need to put the concept clearly. You need to be lucid. It needs to be accepted, and it needs to be communicable. You need to put it, you need to articulate it clearly. So that needs to be kept in mind. Another, it should have logical unity. Now Logical unity means it needs to be it needs to be coherent. Means it, whatever you're talking about, it cannot be that you're talking about one thing and then you're trying to touch another concept. Which means when you're talking about a concept, you need to talk about it wholly. You cannot talk about one concept and deal with the second one and elaborate the point which is not going with your statement at all. So it needs to have coherence. Means one point after a first point, the second, after the second, third, fourth, means a sequence. What is the order that needs to be followed? You need to be comprehensive. Yes, you need to, I mean, you have to elaborate. You are trying to prove something, so you cannot afford to mince words. You cannot leave the researcher, or you cannot leave your project, you cannot afford to lay an impression that, I mean, that you are giving a hazy picture, that the picture is blurred, and you cannot leave it to the other to, to imagine what could be, the outcome. Another, it needs to be operationalizable. Means it means that it needs to be empirical, because if it is empirical, you can test it. And you but need to be clear that it cannot be based on your moral values or judgments. You cannot be judgmental. You cannot look at something with a preconceived mind. Moving further, as I've said, that it should be testable. It means that it should be capable of verification. Hypothesis should be related to the existing body. Means it needs to talk about, or it needs to be compatible with the current knowledge in the area. Logical consistency is very important, but brevity is also important. Means you cannot beat about the bush. You need to keep to the point. Another point, that when we for example, if I give you this example, that an an institutionalization increases, production decreases. As institutionalization increases, production decreases. What do you mean by that? The two variables need to be, I mean, you need to establish the link between the two. You cannot just come up with a statement and that could be considered as an outcome. No, you need to justify it, that on what basis are you putting this statement, you giving this statement. What is the what the outcome is based on it needs to be based on a particular fact, and what is that logic you need to explain. You cannot get away by putting a statement and thinking that research is over. No, it cannot be. You need to, that means you have set the ground and you need to move further. But such statements where explanation is not given, which are not clear, which are not explained properly, you do not, they are not communicable, they are not comprehensive. It leaves everybody in an awe that what it could be. So it needs to be, when you do that, when you put when you formulate a hypothesis, you need to keep all these points in your mind. Can we move to the next slide? All right, learners have incorporated a few more things. These are basically the characteristics, the features of hypothesis. One must keep in mind that you need to be specific and precise. By specific, I meant that you cannot make general statements. If from general, you have to bring your research to a specific problem. That is why out of a big problem, you try to discover a small problem. And step by step, we move in research. A hypothesis cannot be in the form of a question, because if I would ask you to press upon your memory, because a while ago I said hypothesis is a response to your research problem. So it cannot be a question. A question cannot be answered with a question. The statements in the hypothesis should not be contradictory. Means you are specifying it increases and then you say no, but it decreases also. So that would be contradiction. It can be formed either in descriptive or relational form. You need to establish, the relation, or it has to be a narrative where you are describing the events. It should specify variables between which the relationship is to be established. Definitely, when we are talking about working women, non-working women, and the status. So you need to talk about the relationship. You need to establish that. It should describe one issue only, because researcher dealing with a number of issue confuses one who reads and confuses one who deals with it. Can we move further? All right. Now, another thing which I am sure will help you in the formulation of research hypothesis, after which I'll talk about its importance. Now, formulation of hypothesis, you need to remember your hypothesis cannot be a well-believed fact, because you are putting your hypothesis to test. You will verify it. So it can be accepted, it can be rejected. If hypothesis is accepted, replicate the results. Means whatever is your finding, that means you have proved the point. If hypothesis is rejected, then obviously you have to modify the results. These are the three things you need to keep in mind. That if your hypothesis, the statement is correct, your tentative statement is accepted, it fits well, then you can publish your results. If not, you need to modify it. So it is as simple as that. Another thing you need to keep in mind, if you are dealing with something rigidly, you are adamant on not changing anything, then your research can be a contradiction and it can be questioned. That means you are challenging a number of beliefs, established facts, established theories. So your clarification, to that, but to a question needs to be, you need to be very clear with how are you going to deal with it. If you're tossing a challenge, all right, but how are you going to prove it? That should be the second question. Now, that should be the prime question. Why is it important? It is because your hypothesis is specific, so it narrows down the focus of the data collection. As research can be, you can touch a number of areas, but can you really touch everything? No, because you are exposed to a kaleidoscopic range of themes, components. Can you fit all of them in your research? No, because the areas would also be diverse. So if you are clear that this is what I'm going to deal with, and your hypothesis is clear, means it is specifically answering the question, then you will, you don't have to deal with the mammoth's task of, segregating, separating or sifting the data. You can, the effort to collect the data would, lighten. Another, enables to design a data collection procedure which is aimed at testing the plausibility of hypothesis as possible, a statement of the relationship between the terms of the research problem. It is essential for the research question as the researcher intends to verify, as it will directly and greatly help to the interpretation of the results. In simple words, it enables you to accumulate, it enables one to accumulate information and reduces the amount of ignorance. That is, it's important. When your hypothesis is clear, you touch, and you are specific, you gather more because you deal with a particular problem. It is also important as the tools of scientific inquiry research, because hypotheses have tools of scientific inquiry and research, and they are derived from theory and lead to theory. They are derived from a theory and they lead to a particular theory. So the relationship expressed in hypothesis tells the researcher how to conduct inquiry. Means, in which direction are you going to conduct your inquiry? What types of data need to be collected and how to analyze? Means your path becomes clear. You move in a particular direction and you take steps, proper steps which take you to the right direction. Means very close to the to your problem, to your answer. Now, why is it important? I feel it is important. It is also important because a problem gets a chance to establish the probable approval or rejection. It does not, means you can, evaluate. Your whole learning can be gauged. You can put that to test. It does not test the question, but see, question is not tested. It tests the relationship of the variables. It tests the relationship between those variables, whether they are the result is because they are depending on each other or because they are independent of each other. What? So you get a clear picture of that. Another, it helps the it helps the scientists. They could be social scientists as well, to suggest a theory that may explain and predict events. As you move further, the researchers keep predicting that now this could be the possibility or this could be included. Can we move further? All right. Possible difficulties in formulation of good hypothesis. Yes, there could be a number of endless problems because, the word looks, it seems to be easy. But is it that easy? No, because you have to, your whole research is based on this. Now, what could be the possible, difficulties? There could be three possible difficulties. The absence of knowledge of a theoretical framework. This I'll try to explain with the help of an example. What does, suppose the question is, what does awareness of rights among women depend upon? So the theoretical, you need to have a clear knowledge. Will it depend upon personality? Will that depend upon environment? Will it depend upon their aspiration? Or will that depend upon their education or family? What? So if you do not have a clear knowledge that what could be the factors which, upon which the problem can depend, then you can be in a thick soup. Second, second, inability to phrase hypothesis. You have a question, but you are, confused. You are in a dilemma. What to? I mean, what could be the statement? What could be the tentative, statement, or what could be the guess? You fail to, what to say? You fail to make a guess. You fail to surmise. So if you fail to do that, that means you fail to formulate a hypothesis. Good or bad means you're failing in the whole attempt. Now, next, when the investigator is not aware of the scientific research techniques. Scientific research technique here means the systematic procedure, or the way obtaining, the way, that enables you to obtain the statement. So if you are not clear with three of them, it would be very, very difficult. Now, I would like to cite an example here. uh, when I say inability to phrase the hypothesis properly, by that I mean, suppose you want to talk about variables. How are you unable to phrase hypothesis? Because you do not know whether x and y are associated, whether x is dependent on y. If x increases, will y increase, or will it remain unaffected? If you fail to answer these questions, then it would be very, very difficult to frame your hypothesis. Now, another, you need, if you manage to deal with three of them, you overcome the most difficult part, and that is formulation of a good hypothesis. um, can we move further? Can we move further? Yeah. What it does not include: opinions, value judgments, your the norms, because it is a statement of what ought to be, but not a factual statement. As I've already told you, that it is not a fact. You need to make it a fact after putting it to test. Can we move further? Can we move further? All right, types of hypothesis. There are a number of types of hypothesis, and I'll start with the working hypothesis. Working hypothesis is actually the beginning of it is the starting point of your research. It is the starting point, or you can call it is the preliminary assumption of the researcher about the topic. That is why I said is it you you know the working hypothesis is when you think of being at work. So it means that your research is at a preliminary stage, where you are just formulating an assumption about the topic. It is the type which does not have sufficient information to formulate a final hypothesis, because you have just stepped into it. So it cannot have a final hypothesis, but it is certainly considered to be a step to design the research plan. So a researcher a research is certainly it is a derived hypothesis, because I'm talking about the next one, that is research hypothesis. Now, research hypothesis is a derived hypothesis. How? Because it is a researcher's proposition about some fact without a reference to a particular, attribute. So he believes something to be true, and then he joins the race to disapprove it. That's why he researches it. Means a journey from a point, or from the information known to him, to a point where he learns an unknown he tries to unfold, or he tries to unfold the unknown. That is why, research hypothesis is considered to be a derived hypothesis, because you think, because you get into that area which is known to you, and then you step into a larger area which is, which you know which is which happens to you after a lot of exploration, where you try to where you discover a number of things. Now next, what is a scientific hypothesis? Scientific hypothesis is based on theoretical and empirical data. After a number of experiments, after testing a number of theories, after going to the fields, and then, or going to the labs, collect the data. That is scientific. And statistical, I'll discuss the examples, but after this. Now statistical. Here things are reduced to numerical quantities, and decisions are made about them. Here you talk about, you divide groups into, you divide a bigger group into into different groups. Means it is based on distribution, and then comparison. You try to find out, you try to compare one group with the other. So let's look at the examples. Now, after his research, the researcher concluded Muslims have more children than Hindus. But remember, this is hypothetical view. So, it is a fact without reference to a particular attribute. Means he believes something to be true, and he wants that this point should be disapproved later. Working, this is the topic that he has conceived, means an idea he has conceived. Assuring, or a statement he's formulating, assuring bonus increases the sale of a commodity, to assuring bonus increases the sale of a community. And then statistical, group A is richer than group B. So let's move to the next slide, because the next, all right, now the main types of hypotheses are here: null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Now null hypothesis means which can be nullified, which can be crossed, which can be opposed, which can be disagreed. So a null in itself means which does not have a value. How would that happen? Now, suppose I give you an example. Let's suppose a situation where you find, where the researcher gives you a hypothetical view that, there are more dumplings in plate A than B. More dumplings in plate A, than B. Alternative hypothesis is there are more dumplings in plate A than B. Null hypothesis would be the dumplings, let me just rephrase it. Let's say the girls are more fond of dumplings than boys. This is a hypothetical view. The null hypothesis would be age has nothing to do with, sex has nothing to do with, the concept. Whereas alternative will negate the null hypothesis, means it would be just the opposite. For example, coming to the same example, the hypothesis is both the plates, plate A, plate B, have same quantity of dumplings. Null hypothesis would be plate A has more than plate B. Alternative means where it is, it is completely negating the null hypothesis, and it would say, no, plate B has more dumplings than plate A. So, null hypothesis is a statement. There exists no relationship between the two variables, denoted by this is the sign, and the observations of hypothesis are the result of chance. Moving to the next alternative hypothesis, as I mean, to put the both of them in a simple manner, null hypothesis do not, agree to the relationship between the variables, whereas alternative does not agree with the statement of null hypothesis. It completely, goes against null hypothesis. For example, COVID-19 could not affect, COVID-19 affected uh, the whole population. This is a hypothetical view. Null hypothesis would be infection cannot, or the virus cannot affect everybody. So it has negated. Now, alternative. 50% of the population got affected by COVID-19. So they are in disagreement with each other. Can we move further? So they're just opposite to each other. Can we move further? All right. So another example here, null hypothesis. The world is all right. See, the hypothesis is on the top. Not so long ago, people believed that the world was flat. Sorry, this is, I have given this quotation heading to this. Null hypothesis, the world is flat. Alternate hypothesis, the world is round. So it has, it has negated flat. The opposite of flat is round. So they both oppose each other. Another example to it is, consider a study on science, competency of a group of students who receive a special learning aid through online videos on science. The hypothetical view, the group after viewing the videos will have scores significantly different from those who have not seen. Null could be special, social science learning videos make no impact on scores obtained in science, whereas alternatives, it makes different effect on different people. So it is, negating the null hypothesis. Can we move further? All right, these are a few examples. Like, if a medicine reduces the risk of cardiac stroke, then null hypothesis should be the medicine does not reduce the chance of cardiac stroke. So it is completely going against the two variables, which is and not agreeing with the relationship between the two variables. Look at the second sentence example. Is there 100% chance of getting affected by dengue? Uh, the answer is, there could be chances of getting affected by dengue, but not 100%. This is alternative. Why alternative? Because it has established a link between the variables, but maybe null hypothesis could have been, is there an answer to this? Is there 100% chance of getting affected by dengue? No, there are no chances. So when it says no, means it is not agreeing to the relationship, whereas alternative is completely opposite to what null has to say. Are teenagers using mobile phones more than grown-ups to access the internet? Age has no limit. So age, when it says age has no limit, that means it is a null hypothesis, because it is negating the relationship. Can we move further? Can we move further? Okay, this is another example. Can we move further? All right. coming to what could be the sources of deriving hypothesis. There could be many sources. As I've already discussed, cultural values of first is cultural values of society. In American culture, or American culture emphasizes individualism, mobility, competition, and equality. We are just trying to, please remember, these are hypothetical views. While Indian culture emphasizes tradition, values, collectivism, karma, unattachment. So, therefore, when we talk about Indian cultural values, they enable us to develop and test the following hypothesis. We talk about nuclear families, we talk about joint families, we talk about divorce, we talk about break what to say we talk about caste, we talk about Indian families comprising of not only primary and secondary kin, but most often of they talk about distant relationships too. So we can draw a hypothesis from different cultures. We can, and when we talk about those specific cultures, we need to talk about the attributes of or what goes in the making of those cultures. Past research, uh, learners' hypotheses are often inspired by past research. For example, a researcher studying the problem of student unrest may use the finding of another study that students have spent 2 or 3 years in college, university, take more interest in students' problems in campus than freshers. So there's a common notion that freshers are not involved in politics, but the old students are. So that could be a hypothetical view, but it is based on the past. Maybe we have seen that happening, since long. So maybe that enables us to formulate a hypothesis which is based on past research. Moving to the next, source, folk wisdom of hypotheses are also shaped by what we hear from our elders, from what we hear, what we learn about our customs, what we learn about our traditions, the common beliefs, our hypothetical views they are formulated out of them. For example, a hypothetical view would be, owls are very lucky. They bring you a lot of fame and money. So that could be a hypothetical view because it has yet to be proved. Moving to the next point of it, next source, discussions and conversations. Random observations during discussions and conversations and reflections of life, as a person, throw light on events and issues. And when we, through from our experiences, what we hear, what we discuss, our conversations enable us to pick up a few things, and they could, they could shape our viewpoints. Personal experiences, very often researchers see evidence of some behavior pattern. For example, a personal experience, maybe one of our colleagues is not married, and we say, oh, he or she acts eccentric, maybe because she is not married. So that is based on your personal experience. Or maybe I don't have a friend, so I sometimes do not know what to say. So these viewpoint points are based on your personal experiences. Now, intuitions. Sometimes the investigators get a feeling from inside that certain phenomena are correlated. For example, living in a hostel for few years uh, gives an idea, gives an idea that hostlers do not, I mean, they love their freedom. So, or we say the lack of control leads to their leads to results in hooliganism. or that promotes hooliganism, or they want their freedom unleashed. So it could be a sort of, intuition, or you can say preconceived notions. So so all these actually are sources of your this hypothesis. They enable you to formulate hypothesis. Can we move further? Okay, testing hypothesis. How do we test hypothesis? There are different ways we can put hypothesis to test. uh, can we move? All right. Now there are two approaches when we talk about when we aim to test hypothesis. First, classical approach. According to and the classical approach is further divided into three parts: conceptual, empirical, and gathering. Now, conceptual is the first stage of your where you of formulation of hypothesis, because you try to define the concept and define a proposition stating relationship between the two or more variables. Empirical is when you try to establish link through a empirical measure, where you try to measure those variables by putting that to test, by testing by checking the veracity, that are they linked, how are they associated, are they dependent, are they independent of each other, what. And last is where you verify your hypothetical view. How do you do that? By on the basis of gathering and analyzing the results. So in classical approach, first you formulate a concept, you define the concept, means you define the variables. Second, empirical, you put those variables to test just to check if they are related to each other. And third, you verify the relationship between the variables. Now, the second, uh, sorry, hypothetical deductive method. Here, you first formulate a hypothesis. After forming hypothesis, you deduce, means you deduce its consequences. And then on the basis and the third step is inference. Inference is the basis of your observation. Now, to explain it lucidly, there are actually three steps under this method. Now, first step, I'll explain that with the help of an example. The first step is your hypothetical view. And suppose my hypothetical view is, if the social solidarity in one group is that social solidarity in one group is higher than in another, the suicide rate will be lower. If the social solidarity in one group is higher than in another, then suicide rate will be lower. This is my hypothetical view. So after looking at this wide area, I will deduce, means I'll strike out the impossibilities. Means I look for the closest, option that fits, that justifies the hypothesis. Maybe my answer is, it is higher among married than widowed and divorced population. Means I out of them I've deducted, means out of the whole population I am talking about specific. Now inference, that is the third step. Maybe my inference is, no, it is lower in married than widow, than than in widowed, widowed, means those who are, it is lower in married, means married people do not commit suicide, the rate is lesser than the widowed. So this is how I deduct the impossibilities which do not fit well. So from a wider perspective, I am coming down to a narrow means the closest, the consequence. Can we move further? Okay. There's a lot of criticism when it comes to hypothesis. everybody has a different notion about sorry, everybody has a different notion about this hypothesis. Some wants to incorporate, some do not wish to incorporate, because everybody, you know that everybody has a different working pattern, and we all are governed by different, by different viewpoints. So there are people who believe that each study needs a hypothesis, whereas some believe that if your research is exploratory and explanatory, only then hypothesis is required. If it is descriptive, it should not have hypothesis, because you are just narrating the events, and you are justifying that with the help of a theory. So hypothesis is not essential, is not to be included everywhere. So, whereas qualitative researchers argue that although hypotheses are important tool of social research, but they must not precede the research, but rather result from an investigation. So they must investigate and do not look at the research with a preconceived mind, or with a notion, with a fixed notion, and then revolving the whole research around it, because they believe that it limits the whole it limits the scope. But despite all these arguments, many investigators use hypotheses in their research implicitly or explicitly. The greatest advantage is that they not only guide in the goals of research, but also help in concentrating on the important aspects of the research topic, by avoiding less significant issues. I mean, you can, by being specific, I think you can definitely work on, you can cut, you can cull off all those things which are not relevant. So it actually acts as a sieve, where you can separate relevant from irrelevant. So the debate is still on. So the researchers have not managed to come to any particular conclusion. They are still trying to find an answer whether it should be there or not. So I hope I could explain the concept, and that is all from my end. I think I took more than the mentioned time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. You have presented your presentation in a very systematic and detailed way. Really, it was a lucid presentation from your side. So, I can say that words are very less in which we can express our sincere thanks to you for your presentation. So I'm requesting all participants, please do not leave the group, because we are concluding this session. It's the last day and we are supposed to go for the vote of thanks. Before that, I may request the participants for questions and answers, please.
Sir, good evening. Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
So, Madam, Ruchiraj Madam, your presentation is really lucid and informative, elucidating. I have two questions. Please clarify. Firstly, can hypothesis be framed in affirmative sense? The next question is whether always in all researchers.
Sir, can you please repeat?
Sorry?
Sir, can you please repeat?
In what form?
Can you put it one by one?
That's what I'm doing. How, in what form hypothesis may be framed?
So, sir?
Yes.
Am I
Whether
audible?
hypothesis can be in affirmative sense.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
Just a minute, madam.
Yeah.
My question is whether hypothesis can be framed in affirmative sense.
Madam, I think we have captured his question. He says whether hypothesis can be framed in an affirmative sense. Am I right?
Exactly, sir. Exactly.
Madam, over to you. I think madam has left. Ruchi ma'am is there. She may join again. We guess so. Okay, we are expecting that she will join again because
Yes, sir. I'm so sorry about this.
no problem. Ma'am, I think we have captured this. The question is like, can we frame hypothesis in an affirmative sense? Ruchi ma'am, are you there? I think she has some problem. We are expecting that she may join once again. Okay, till ma'am can join us, we are going to the last session. That's the vote of thanks. But before that, I will request you to share your views if you can. Hello.
Sir, good evening, sir. I am Dr. Kamasai, SVM, Professor
Yeah.
of Law, Care University, Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh.
Great.
Really, all the sessions of your FDP, really elucidative, richly informative from various walks of the globe. It is really beneficial to those who are initiating their journey in the path of research, and more light throwing for those who have already started their research. I hope in future you'll be conducting so many other enlightening programs, sir. Thank you very much. Sir,
Thank
I
you.
want to know whether will you issue any participant certificate?
Definitely, we
Oh,
will
thank you so much.
we will communicate all participants through email. Don't bother
Thank you
about
so much.
it. You will
Thank
be
you so much.
I would.
Sir, I'm
Can
sorry.
I comment on something?
confirmed by
Hello.
please. Yeah, you are all.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can
Am I
hello.
audible?
Ruchi ma'am is there. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sessions what you have conducted was really nice.
Ma'am,
Can I
sorry.
speak?
Yeah, Shanti,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
interruption.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed. Though I have done my PhD, though I have published papers. I was just in the beginning. I was just thinking that whether should I join for this FDP. Then when I joined first session, it went on very well, and then I thought I'll continue. And normally people join and they leave. But
Yeah.
even now there's some parties going on, but I didn't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Miss this FDP. I really enjoyed, and the people who had spoken about literature review and the phrase the journal publication, how there are some nuances which, as per researchers, we have done, but still we have learned a lot. And it was one of the best FDPs because I have attended so many during the pandemic. Morning one, afternoon one, night one, I used to attend. But this I really enjoyed, and I had a very good time. I learned a lot. It's not that just for the sake of learning or just for the sake of organizing, you organize. It is something really useful for all the researchers, and not only researchers, even the students. Thank you very much to the organizers. And then I really appreciate the coordinators' job. Okay, all the coordinators, really you were having the patience, and then so nicely I learned that mainly because I had conducted so many FTPs, and sometimes we used to get irritated with the participants because very often they used to unmute the either the video or the audio, but very patiently all the coordinators, kudos to all the coordinators, and especially for the organizers. I really enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, thank you for your passion, learning of passion. I will request Ruchi, ma'am, for the questions which have left.
Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm here.
Doctor, please. I think we have one question left. I think if I'm right, his question was, can we frame hypothesis in an affirmative way? Requesting all participants, please do not leave because we are concluding this session. That will be very informative. Can we frame hypothesis in an affirmative way?
In an affirmative way.
Yeah.
See, when we say declarative, it is affirmation. But when it is tested, so after testing, we find out, we ultimately discover it. We check the veracity of our statement only if it agrees with the variables and it tries to establish it. It goes with what you have stated. If you find out that yes, I'll try to explain it with the help of an example. I know I have not turned on the camera, but I don't want to leave the meeting because of the poor connection. So I've switched off the camera. So I have one. I would like to specify this. Suppose I have a I strongly believe that the working women they are privileged to enjoy the best living, the most suitable living pattern. This is based on my thinking. So yes, positively I've put it. But when we empirically check, when we put it to test, we may find that the non-working also have the privilege to live, lead a better life. So when we are checking it, then only then we can project, I mean, we can consider it to be affirmative, because it is positively going with your statement. Please remember, if your results are going with the with the hypothesis, your answer, your results, you don't have to change the result. But if it is not going with it, then certainly you have to modify it. The variables need to be changed. You cannot look at anything, or when you research, you cannot deal with anything with a very fixed mind. You need to put that. Please remember that your assumptions can be incorrect.
Thank you, madam. My last question.
Yes,
Whether
sir.
hypothesis always requires to be supported by statistics?
Mr. Bhatt, if you could put it,
Sir, can you repeat your question, because I have not.
Whether hypothesis should always be verified by statistics?
Yeah. Madam,
no, there are different ways, and I've discussed the different patterns. I mean, not always statistically. When you are comparing, one group with another, male with female, yes, it can be put. But there are a lot many other ways also, as I've discussed. You can conduct your research, you can interview, you can make people fill questionnaires, you can gather material, you can observe, there could be narratives, and on after collecting all these data, you can analyze, you can interpret. You have different possible, you have different ways you can put, you can you can formulate your hypothesis. That's not the only way, that is one of the ways.
Oh, thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much.
requesting other participants for your questions, if any left, please. I don't think we have left some questions. So before we can go for the vote of thanks, I think if this program would have been offline, then definitely you all would have enjoyed the chilling weather and frozen lakes of Kashmir at this time. Still, our doors are open for you, all of you. You can come at any time, and we will definitely welcome you with the Kashmiri hospitality.